Hello, I'm Felix from GMWolf, and today I'll be covering more advanced features of programming and how to create a very simple player with a gun. So for this tutorial, we will want to have two objects. First, we have to want the player objects, if I can take a brush, the player objects, and we will want to have the bullet objects. We'll want to have just a single instance of the player object inside the room, and we will create the bullet instance every time the player uses the mouse button. So for this, we'll be using the instance create function. Instance, it's supposed to be a C, instance underscore create. And this function will create an instance of whatever object you tell it to do at a certain position. So it takes in three different arguments. The first being the object you want to create, well, the one you want to create an instance from, so object obj. The second and the third will be the x and y position to create the instance at. So in this instance, we'll probably want to create it wherever the player is. Now, we will also be looking at how to make the newly created object to move in the direction of the mouses from the player, so that you shoot towards like the mouse cursor, and how to make the player object point towards the mouse. And for this, we'll be using a function called point_direction. Point_direction, and this one takes in four variables. You have first the x1 and y1, which are the x and y coordinates of the first point, and x2 and y2. And this is the x and y coordinates of the second point. And basically this function will return the directions formed by the line from y1 to x2, y2. So let's have a look at how we can do this within GameMaker. So here is the GameMaker window. Let's create, first of all, a new sprite. The first one being for the player. So we're just going to have a very simple circle, like so. This is not very good. Let's have a better circle, like so, with a line in the middle so we can see in what direction it's pointing. And let's name it SPR_player, and let's center it. Whoops, caps lock is on. SPR_player, and we would want to have another sprite for the bullet. This one will make it significantly smaller, maybe 8 by 8, and let's just make it a black square, like so. And this will be SPR_bullet, and let's center it as well. So let's create the first object, being the player object. So create this object button right here, and let's call it obj_player. Player, if I can spell that correctly. So that will be the player object. Player, I do not know how to write. Here you go. And let's give it a sprite of the SPR player. And first of all, let's have it point towards the mouse the whole time. So let's add an event, go into the step event, because we want this to happen the whole time. We don't want it to only point at the beginning or at the end. We want it to happen during the whole game. So step, just a normal step, and let's add some code. So we want to change the angle that the image is at. So we want the image to point towards the mouse. So we want to set the angle of the image, so we use a variable called image_angle. So as you can see, it is a red variable, meaning that it is a variable that GameMaker recognizes and is going to use to change the angle of the image. So every time you see a red variable, you know it actually means something, and so it's going to affect something. So if you don't want to have, so if you want to create a variable which will not affect your different objects, you probably want to make sure it's not displayed as red. But right now we do want it to affect the angle of the image. So we want it to point towards the mouse, and so we're going to be using, as I said, the point_direction function. So we want it to be equal to point direction, And so we wanted to point towards the mouse. So remember, point direction takes 4 variables. The first x and y variables of the first point and the second x and y variables of the second point. So first of all, we want it to be from its own x and y, and then mouse underscore x, mouse underscore y. So this will make the image angle, so the equal, the direction that you get from its own location to the location of the mouse. So mouse x and mouse y are the x and y values of the cursor. Now let's, I think that's all we need to do to point in the direction of the mouse. So we create a new room, place your object in the middle somewhere, it'll be down here, and let's press the play button. And what we should see is once the game actually runs, we should see the object pointing towards the mouse. And as you can see, it is. Obviously, on your screen, if you're not watching it at in HD, you might not be able to see it because it is quite small. But I can assure you that if you try it, it should work perfectly. Now, just to make this clearer, let's make this object a little bigger. You can always press inside the sprite editor, transform, stretch, and I'll just make it twice as big, just so it's clearer to you guys. And let's make this nice and big, nice and thick line here, so you can see it pretty well as the circle. There you go. And I have to put this line back in because I'm a noob. Perfect. Let's center this again. Now we want it to shoot the bullet. Now the bullet I might have made it a bit small. Let's stretch it maybe 250 times. There you go. So now it's about 20 length and 20 height. And let's create a new object for it. So create a new object button, obj underscore bullet. And let's take the SBR bullet. So we want this one to move towards the mouse as soon as it's created, so that when the player object creates the bullet will automatically start moving towards the mouse. To do that, we're going to do add event create, because we only want it to start moving at the beginning. We don't need to keep calculating the movements later on. And we're going to use, again, some variables which GameMaker already recognizes and will carry out the other code for you. The first one being speed. And we want to set that to maybe 20 or something like that. And that will be the speed the object initially goes at. That is quite useful because you don't actually have to do all the trigonometry later on. It will just take care of all the maps itself. In order to change the x and y position of the bullet. Next, we want to change the direction of it. So we want to make direction, and as you can see, it is a red variable, meaning that it will be recognized by GameMaker and will make the bullet go in that specific direction. We want it to again be towards the mouse, so you just have point underscore direction, and again x, y, so it starts at where he is, towards the mouse, mouse underscore x, mouse underscore y. So again, this will become the direction in degrees that is towards the mouse, from him towards the mouse, and it will set it to that direction, and he's going at the speed of 20. So essentially, this piece of code over here will mean that the bullet will move towards the mouse at a speed of 20. Let's press OK here and OK here. Now, we still need to create the bullet every time. So inside the player object, let's add a new event. We want a mouse event, and we want it when you press the left button. So we just created that new left pressed event. Let's drag in a piece of code and actually create the object. So you want to create the objects at the position of the object. So remember, first we want to use the instance create, instance underscore create. Whoops, I might have spelled something wrong. Instance create. And we wanted to create it at the current player position, so x, y. Remember, we are inside the player object, so x and y is the x value of the player and y value of the player as well. And the object we want to instantiate, which means to create an instance of, is obj underscore bullet. And this is when you see that naming your objects accordingly can become important, so that you can easily see what this code actually does. So let's press OK here and OK, and let's see if this works. So we're now running the game, and everything should compile. And once the window pops up, as you can see, the player is pointing towards the mouse like always. And when I press the left button, we should see. Oh, I see. In this case, I did something wrong, but as you can see, when I click on the object, it will turn towards the mouse. Now, to fix that, as you can see, he's not clicking when I click outside of the object, but as soon as I am inside the object, he will start shooting like we told it to in the right direction. This is because we use the left press event. What this event does is actually check when the left button of the mouse is pressed on the object. This is not quite what we want. We want it to shoot wherever your mouse is, so we want to change it to global mouse left pressed, and this will actually create the object. The event will be made even if you're not clicking on the object. So now if we play it, it should work all fine. However, we still have a problem, which I'll describe as soon as this comes up. As you can see, when I click, now it still works wherever my mouse is. However, the object still exists, but it still exists, and it's moving outside of the screen all the way and never actually destroyed itself. And if you keep on creating loads and loads and loads of objects, eventually all the objects will keep spreading out, and you'll have so many objects, your computer will have to carry on making all those calculations of where the object has to be for every single object. And this can quickly become a problem because it might slow down your game. So what you need to do is destroy the object once it leaves the screen. So what we want to do is go inside the bullet and add a new event. We want to have an other event, outside room, and this will check if the object is currently outside of the playable room. And the room, remember, is this area right here, and you can set the size of the room in the settings tab. However, in this instance, we don't need to. So outside the room, we want to add a new piece of code, and this time we want to destroy the object. So we can go instance_destroy. And I spelled instance wrong, like always. Instance destroy. What this does will actually destroy the current instance of the objects. Of course, it won't affect the other ones, but it means that it won't have to do all the calculations anymore once it leaves the room, because it doesn't exist anymore. So as you can see, the game should still work as normal, but the number of instances should, the bullet is actually immediately destroyed as it comes out of the room. You cannot see it because it's only once it's outside of the room, but it does happen, and it's an important thing to do when you're making a shooter game, to make sure you actually get rid of your bullets after some time, because I have seen some games that get laggy very quickly because the objects aren't being destroyed, and you keep on creating more and more, and the computer still has to go, oh, I need to create more objects, and keep on thinking of where they're supposed to be. So remember to tell it to destroy it. So this it has been a very simple tutorial on showing you how to use two new functions. Three new functions actually: the point direction, the instance create that we have inside the left press event, and we also showed you how to use the instance destroy, which allows you to destroy the object. Now, the instance destroy can be used in other manners. You can also use, if you create a new enemy player, you can have it destroy when it hits a bullet using the collision event, which I showed in the previous tutorial. So if you want to see how to do that, how to use the collision events, you can go check out my object tutorial. And yes, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time for some more GM tutorials.